Hi guys, so we are going to be learning how to do mean, median, and mode for a set of data. We're going to do this on what we consider raw data, which would just be the values for a given information. We're also going to do it on a frequency distribution, both a grouped and a normal frequency, so you can kind of see how that's going to work for us. We're going to start off here looking at our data set. This is the number of alcoholic servings per person for 193 countries in 2010. I've also went ahead and added in our legal drinking age for each of these countries listed here, but you can see we have specifically the number of beer servings, the number of spirit servings, and then the number of wine servings per person in the year 2010. So what we're going to do is we are going to find the mean, median, and mode for beer, spirit, and wine servings for the entire world, or at least the world that is listed in this list. Again, we have 193 countries. And then additionally, we're going to come over here to our grouped frequency, and we're going to find the mean of the total liters of pure alcohol sold. And then we're also going to find the mean or the average legal drinking age for the number for each of the countries here, or for the world, I guess we would say there. So let's start off by finding the mean, median, and mode for beer servings, spirit servings, and wine servings. So what we're going to do is we're just going to come to the very bottom of this list. It's a pretty long list. Like I said, we have 193 countries. I've already labeled my last three columns as mean, median, and mode. We're going to skip this column of legal drinking ages because we really don't want to talk about that. We are going to look at the beer and alcohol or spirits and wine servings. And you know what? Why don't we go do this real quick? It's a really cool thing since we want to see that top column. So I'm going to take this top column. I'm going to come over to view. And I'm going to freeze that top pane row. And what that means is that as I scroll down, the country, legal drinking age, beer servings, spirit servings, that just stays the same. So when I'm down here at the bottom, I can actually see which column I'm looking at. Oh, and the other thing, if you haven't done it, oh no, we don't need to do that. No, we're good this video. So we're going to come down here to the bottom, and we're going to use the built-in equations for Excel. So we're always, whenever we're working with an equation, we always want to start off with equal, and then you can start typing average. Instead of saying mean, we are going to say average. That's the way that Excel uses that. You can either finish typing it, or you can click on the word average, or double click on the word average. Now it's going to ask you, okay, what do you want to average together? So there's two ways we can do this. We can again go back up to the very top of our list and click and hold on E2 or C2, excuse me, and then just drag that down to the very bottom, all the way down to the C194 and let go. Notice that now it says C2 through C194. I'm going to close that parentheses and press enter. So from this, we looked at, in the world, we're looking at 106 servings of beer per person in 2010. And now the really cool thing about Excel is if you figure it out for one column, to replicate that exact same formula for the following columns, all you have to do is click that little box here in the lower right hand corner, make that little plus come up on your mouse, and then just drag that over those two columns and let go. And you'll notice it will average. And if I come in here and actually click on this and look up here at the top, you'll see that my formula looks the same, except now I'm on D2 to D194. And if I look at this last one, I'm going from E2 to E194. So that's a really nice feature. You can fill in your formulas once you have one set. So median is very similar to what we just did for average. We're going to do equals. We're going to type in the word median. Again, notice it comes up. You can either finish typing the word median, or you can double click on that blue median there. And I'm going to put my parentheses since I just had already typed it all out. I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to go from C2 to C194. So Notice that I could do this two ways. On the previous one, I went up to the very top. I knew it started at C2, and I just clicked on that and dragged it all the way down to C194. I can also just type in what I know I want, and I know I want to go from C2 to C194. I just need to make sure that I put a colon between them. So C2 colon C194 in my parentheses again, and press enter. So the median beer servings for these 193 countries is 76 servings per person per year. And again, we're going to take this guy and we're just going to drag him over, and we're going to get the same data, or the median for our spirits and the median for our wine servings. And then the last one we're going to do is our mode. So what we want to do with this is we're going to type in the word mode, but notice you have three different options, okay? When we type in mode, we have mode multi, mode single, or mode. So what we typically, and I think the best thing you should do is always do the mode multi. Mainly because if you just do the mode single and there happens to be two or more modes, it won't pick it up. So just to be safe, you'll do the mode multi, or multiple modes here. And that way, if there is multiple modes, it will pick those up and it'll just put commas between them. By the way, if there are no modes, it will come up as not applicable, have a little star and say that this, little hashtag and say that this isn't possible. And that just means that there was no mode. Because remember, in your data sets, you can have data that has no mode in it whatsoever. Okay, so we're going to again go from C2 to C194, and I'm just going to type that in. Again, you can click at the top and drag all the way down if you prefer that. Go ahead and press enter. So you can see that the mode here is 0. That means that the most common beer serving is 0, and we're going to scroll that across, and we have 0 all the way across there. So the most common number, or the most common beer serving, is 0. So that's how we find the mean, median, and mode when we're just looking at a list of data on the column. If we want to look at a specific country, let's say, instead of looking at all of the countries, maybe we want to look just at the United States, and I want to find out what the average alcohol serving for the United States is. Well, then I could come out here to the side where I am for the US, and I could do the same thing. So I could say I want to do the average, but I only want to do these three numbers, the 249, 158, and 84. So the number of beer, spirit, and wine servings. And I can press enter, and I get that the average number of servings for the United States is 163.6 per person for that, again, for that year 2010. We could do the same thing with our median, if we wanted to do median here. Again, we're just going to do median. We're going to select those three numbers here because we're just looking at the serving size, or the serving amount, I should say. And we can see that the median is 158. And we could do that for everything. And again, the really cool thing is once you develop one of them, all you have to do, if I want to get a different country, is I just have to click that button on the side and drag it down, and it will fill in those data. I can also do the same thing and drag it up to the very top, and now we have found the mean for every value. Now I know you see that little corner data. All it's doing is because we just used these three numbers and we left off this number right here. It's getting a little bit upset with us. Don't worry too much about that. So this would be the mean for our servings. And then we could do the same thing for median here. And again, I've already found the median formula down here on the United States. So all I got to do is find that. I can drag it down to finish off the column. Come back up here and drag it up. And now I have the mean. Oops, I didn't mean to drag it all the way there. There we go. Now I have the median for all of the countries, the median number of alcohol servings per person for the year of 2010. So that's kind of the cool thing about doing it this particular style, where we just use the built-in average and median features of Excel. So that's how we would do it on what we call raw data, which just means that we have those data points. We're just finding the mean and median and mode if we wanted to. We could do the mode on these as well, but a lot of these are not going to have modes since we're only dealing with 3 numbers. It's a little bit more difficult. Now let's kind of come over here to our total liters of pure alcohol and our legal drinking age, and let's find the mean of these two values. Since these are in a data or in a frequency distribution, it's a little bit more complex to find the average in Excel, and because Excel is not going to be able to just to do equals the average on this. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with the legal drinking age because this is by far the easier one to do of the two. We're going to take the age and we're going to multiply that by the frequency. And again, we're going to do this in Excel, so it's really cool. We're going to start off with equal. You can either arrow over or you can click on the cell that has the age in it, so in this case 10, and then we're going to multiply that times the frequency. When I do multiplication, I'm going to use my little star. It's Shift 8 on your keyboard. And then I'm going to multiply it by the frequency. So there's my 2 multiplication, drinking age times frequency. I'm going to press enter. And all you have to do again to repeat this formula that we just created is take that and drag it down. Now notice that I'm going to stop here at 21. I'm not going to look at these last two where I have no age minimum and total ban because there's nothing I can do for the multiplication there. So when I'm talking about the legal drinking age, I'm only going to look at these 10 through 21. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to sum this column up that we just created. So we're going to do the sum. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to again hold down and click and drag those numbers right there. So I've got L15 through L21. And notice again, I didn't do those last two cells because there's no numbers in there. Now here's the deal that we have to understand on this particular example. Because we did not use these two values right here, this 14 and this 18, I can't do my average by dividing by 193 because that's the number of countries I have, because I didn't look at every country. We didn't talk about these. So really quickly what we want to do is we want to take and we want to subtract out that 14 and that 18. So again, we're going to start with equal, and we're going to do that 193, and we're going to say minus the 18, and then we're going to say minus the 14. Okay, and the really cool thing when you're looking at this, you notice that when I'm selecting a cell, it's flashing. And when a cell has already been a part of my formulator, you get that solid line, and if you'll notice the colors match up. So like this particular cell here, which is K23, is circled in red, and then my K23 in my formula is red. So I can clearly see which cell I'm talking about in the formula. I'm going to press enter. So there's what I'm going to divide by 161. So that takes into account that we didn't talk about these countries that have no minimum age or have a total ban on drinking. So now let's do our actual mean. So remember, mean is the sum of the values. That's this guy right here, that 2,919. Divided by the total number of values, which in our case is going to be 161, since we're taking away those no age minimum and the total ban. And we get that the average or the mean drinking age of these 161 countries that have an age limit is going to be 18.13. And hopefully you kind of think, well, that makes sense, because if I look at the frequency, look at the age limit of the most common frequency. That's 18. So most of these countries' legal drinking age is 18, which makes sense that our mean would also be 18. And we don't see a whole lot of outliers, although 10 is pretty low, but we only have one country with 10, so it's not really skewing the average too much. So that kind of should make sense that it's going to be the legal drinking age on average is 18. All right. So hopefully that made sense. That's for a frequency distribution where you have solid numbers are in there. You don't have a grouped frequency, just a regular old frequency. So let's come up here on our liters one where we do have a grouped frequency problem. So what we need to do before we can figure out the average on this is we need to find that midpoint. We talked about midpoints in chapter 2 when we talked about frequency distributions. So what we're going to do, if you remember, is we're going to do this by hand. So we're not going to use any of our cells to do this. We're going to add in the low and the high of one class. So in this first class, that's 0 to 2. So we're going to do parentheses. We're going to do 0 plus 2. We're going to end our parentheses. That's going to be the top of our fraction, or what we're going to add. That's our sum. And then we're going to divide by 2. Now the reason that I put the 0 plus 2 in parentheses is because if I don't, then it's going to divide before it adds, and I need it to add the top first. So that's why the top is going in parentheses for this very first one. Okay, so the midpoint from 0 to 2 is 1. Now we're going to do a little bit of cheating to find the midpoints for the rest of them. If you remember in the video, we talked about the class width. So in this case, the distance between classes, which if you look here, the distance from 0 to 2 is 2. From 2 to 4 is 2. From 4 to 6 is 2. So our class width is 2. That means our midpoints are 2 distances away from each other. So what we're going to do, again, a little cheating here, we're going to come up here to where we found the midpoint of that first one, and we're going to add 2. We're just going to press enter. So our midpoint for our next class from 2 to 4 is 3. Makes sense, right? And all we're going to do is take that little dot down there and we're going to drag it all the way down to our last class. Notice it does all of our midpoints for us at that point. So the only one we really had to figure out was that first one. Again, remember to do the midpoints, we add the low and the high together and divide by 2. You can either do that in your head or you can let Excel do it for you. That's up to you. It's however you want to put that very first one in. And then the second one, all we had to do was figure out what the class width was and add that to the midpoint of the previous and then drag that down. Really cool. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to take the frequency and we're going to multiply it times the midpoint, kind of very similar to what we did with the legal drinking age, except we had to find that midpoint because we needed a singular value to multiply our frequency from. So we're going to do equal. We're going to do our frequency times our midpoint and press enter. That's going to give us that 62 there for 0 to 2 liters. And then we're going to just drag that down to the very bottom. Okay, so once we get that, we're going to say equal to the sum. I'm going to add up this column here. And we're going to end our parentheses and press enter. So the sum of the frequencies times the midpoint gives us 959. So when we want to find the mean here, again, remember we're going to do the total sum of the frequencies in the midpoint. That's this guy. And we're going to divide it by the total number of data points, in this case 193, and we're going to press enter, and it looks like the mean amount of total liters sold per person for these 193 countries is 4.96. So 4.96 liters per person in the year 2010. Okay, so that is how you can find the mean and the median and the mode for raw data, as well as the mean and the median, or the mean for a frequency distribution and a grouped frequency distribution. Now, we could technically also find the median and the mean for the grouped frequency distribution. It's just a very complicated process we typically don't want to have to do. Obviously, the mode for the legal drinking age, when you're looking at a chart like this where you have singular values, it's very easy to pick out the mode. It's just the one that occurs the most, and that would be the number. That would be the age 18. That is the mode for this. Unfortunately, with this one, all we could pick out here would be the class that has the most, which would be 6 to 8 liters. That's 32 at the highest frequency. Oh, and I'm sorry. That is not true. It is 0 to 2. So 0 to 2 liters, which had a frequency of 62. So that would be our most common range of liters, but to actually figure out the median, the mode of this would take a little bit more mathematics than we want to do here on our frequency distributions. So hopefully this made sense. If you have any questions or concerns, or you didn't understand a way we did a formula or something like that, please make sure to email me and let me know, and we will look at that problem.